Okay, so welcome to today's webinar. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Carol Reese and I'm a registered nurse and a nursing practice advisor on the practice team here at the SRNA, and my role is to facilitate the webinar. Before we start, I'd like to acknowledge that this presentation is being held on Aboriginal land and recognize the strength, resilience, and capacity of the Treaty 4 and Métis people in the land. Our topic today is Council 101. And our speaker will be Warren Cook, who is the president of the SRNA Council. Before we get started, I have a couple of notes on how you can engage throughout the presentation. As a viewer of this webinar, you'll be able to hear and see the presentation, and only panelists will be able to speak throughout the presentation. If you have a question, please add them to the Q&A or chat sections. We will be monitoring this area for questions throughout the webinar, and these questions will be answered either live or via typed response. If you wish to send your question anonymously, just check the box at the bottom of the Q&A screen. And Warren has said he will take questions as we go along. So if something comes up, please feel free to send in the question. I'll get it to him. We'll be recording this webinar, and it may be posted on the SRNA website for those who are not available to join today to view later. An email will be sent to you with a link for an evaluation. We hope you'll take a couple of minutes and complete the quick survey. And now that we have the housekeeping items out of the way, I'll turn the microphone over to Warren.
Hello, my name is Warren Cook, President of Saskatchewan Registered Nurses Association. And thank you for joining us today, or joining us when you get an opportunity and taking advantage of the archived webinars on our website. So today's discussion is about Council 101, understanding the basics of council. We do have elections coming up and nominations are open. So please submit the name of yourself or somebody else, one of your colleagues that you believe would be great in council. The overview of today's discussion, talking about council, we'll talk a little bit about governance, policy governance, the amazing networking opportunities that present themselves on council, and amazing professional development opportunities. Talk a little bit about the work schedule, overall board principles, and a big focus of council being the long-term vision, which I'll probably highlight multiple times. So in preparation for this, I was tempted to do many different things, but it can go many different ways. Trying to focus on SRNA Council, but to give you a little bit review of boards and board function in general. I've had the privilege of going to many different networking, professional development sessions, national council, state boards of nursing, Council of Licensure, Enforcement and Regulation, CNA. It's just tremendous opportunity to develop and learn about the profession and have an impact on the profession on a go-forward basis into the future. So I'll start with highlighting 5 habits of high-functioning boards. 1, hold generative discussions while everyone is fresh. Build a healthy culture that is thoughtful, informed, courteous, and candid. 3, ask, are we ready to make this decision? 4, consider staff as partners and trusted advisors. And 5, members come prepared. The board has 3 main duties. It has a duty of care, duty of loyalty, and duty of obedience. It should also make wise, consequential decisions, set the direction, provide oversight, ensure and allocate resources, and plan succession. And that would be one of the functions of today, is planning succession. And then just a little bit more explanation of the duty of care as it comes from a board level. Prepare and participate. Exercise ordinary and reasonable care in the performance of duties. Do what a prudent person would do after reasonable inquiry in a similar position under similar circumstances. And be informed and protect confidential information. There are also 10 basic responsibilities of board. 1 would be to determine the mission and purpose. 2, select the chief executive or the executive director. 3, support and evaluate the chief executive or executive director. 4, ensure effective planning. 5, monitor and strengthen programs and services. 6, ensure adequate financial resources. 7, protect assets and provide financial oversight. 8, build a competent board. 9, ensure legal and ethical integrity. 10, enhance the organization's public standing. Board has responsibilities for stewardship over programs, to confirm, monitor, and evaluate, over finances, to budget, and to ensure the statements are there, that audits occur, and that the investments are well looked after. Risk management also plays a key function at the board level. Mitigation, compliance, ensuring cybersecurity, which is becoming an increasing threat, and ensuring a CEO continuity plan. There are legal and moral aspects in the stewardship of a board. Ethical practice, ensuring that we are ethically doing things right, ensuring that conflicts of interests are addressed. And at the beginning of each board meeting, we do talk about conflicts of interest and ask that anybody to address them. I had the privilege of going to CNA as well, where we talked about conflicts of interest and had quite an in-depth discussion about that. And one of the main things is just that it is identified as at its earliest opportunity, and it's also possible to identify it as one becomes aware of it. And social media policy, which I'm sure there will be much discussion about as the future comes to us. And then evaluation of the executive director. We want to be supporting our executive director. We want to be able to assess the executive director and compensate the executive director appropriately. And those are some of the main things. There are different levels of board engagement. And we want to see the board engage as governance as leadership, where we engage with the CEO in a constructive partnership so that we're both on the same page. And if a board is too over managing, it can be micromanaging and really getting in the way of the executive director. And if the board is not engaged enough, it can be really turn into a rubber stamping type of body. And so there's a healthy balance there to be engaged with the executive director, having those thorough discussions so that we can have a united vision. Some of the phrases and used to describe the role or oversight of a board, I had already kind of talked about micromanaging, and then responsible, accountable. We want to trust but verify. And I think that our board really operates quite a lot in the collaborative and consensus building one, taking the time to ensure that everybody is on the same page, that time and questions are asked, that thoughtful deliberation occurs, and asking what did we miss, and really focusing on that visionary leadership, looking 5, 10, even 20 years down the road. Talking about possible futures is something that should be spending about half of the time of our board activities. We talk about looking forward and looking at the ends and the outcomes and how we can impact that. Really focusing on the future. And there are encouraging courageous conversations. We want to be having a generative issue, identify key points, assumptions, and drafting a recommendation. We want to be challenging assumptions, prepare a list of all the qualms, and we want to divide the qualms into cognitive and affective categories. And how likely or how important or how probable is this going to be passing? And we want to be celebrating wise, consequential decisions. In the nonprofit world, which is part of what our board is, or our board is a nonprofit board. But effective conflict is managed to achieve consensus. And that's basically just ensuring that everybody's on the same page, everybody gets the same information, that we take the time to work through issues as they arise, to manage diversity of viewpoints, and keep working. Focusing more on the SRNA board, we're governed by the RN Act 1988. And then we also have our bylaws, and we have a suite policy manual that governs a lot of what we do, which is available on our website. I have 32 pages printed off here, and it talks about how we govern our CEO, executive director leadership, our governance process policies about how we manage our responsibilities as a board internally, our executive limitations, which is the limitations that we place on our executive director, where we ask our executive director to achieve our ends within the executive limitations, and we monitor against those. And our ends, which is can be seen as the goals of our organization, but it's a little bit more than that. But if you are interested in looking at what our governance policies are like, or our council policies, they are available on our website, and you can feel free to look those up as it goes. Talking a little bit more about our responsibilities as a board, and I shouldn't say responsibilities, what we do as a board and what the time commitment would be, as that is one of the key things that comes up when people ask me questions about getting involved with council. There are 5 major meetings a year, and they occur on a predictable basis. We schedule them 3 years in advance, and there's a major meeting in February, May, just before our AGM, June, where we welcome members and go through an orientation and also do business. And then at the end of August or beginning of September, usually the week before Labor Day, we have a council meeting, and it's more of a visioning session. That one has a unique focus on spending a really long-term look into the future, doing a good comprehensive environmental scan, and gathering information to understand the issues from staff and from a good cross-sector of the nursing profession, of emerging issues and trends, to make sure that we are on the right track with where we're going, and we adapt our ends, or the where we're headed for. That's usually a good time of year to be able to do that, although it is an ongoing process. And in November, we just had a November council meeting on the 6th and 7th. And so those are the 5 major meetings. Each meeting is usually about 3 days. And those are in person in Regina at the board office, or the SRNA office. There is also Zoom meetings, video conferencing platform, where we try to keep our Zoom meetings to 2 hours or less. There's usually at least 3 a year, one in March, one in October for sure, and then as it goes. There are also subcommittees of council that can be involved with. There's Audit and Finance Committee and the Linkages Committee, which the Linkages Committee helps look after our governance action plan and trying to find out those activities that we can do within the resources we have available, which are limited, to be able to better connect with ownership. And for our organization, we define the owners as the public, and especially as a regulatory function. And then from the association point of view, the owners would be seen as the membership. If push comes to shove, we always have the public interest come first and foremost, as that is our primary objective, to be protecting the public. We are governed a little bit by policy governance principles. We used to adhere more strictly to it and be quite on board with it and be really rigid with our interpretation. Council over the years has found it to be a little too restrictive. So we have loosened it up because as council, we have the ability to determine what we think is best for this organization and to help us be able to function most appropriately. So I'm just going to go over the policy governance principles, which is a registered trademark organization and by Carver. But like I said, we have eased in our rigidity with these. But governance is so I'll just list them off. Governance is a function of ownership, not of management, and really differentiating the difference between governing and managing. The board is the link in the chain of command between the ownership and management. And that's where our governance action plan and linkages committee really comes in to help make sure that we're linking with key partners. Board authority is group authority. As president, I don't have any special powers outside of council. Council is the ultimate authority, and council carries ultimate weight in decision-making power. And all authority flows through council. ENDS policies describe organizational results, beneficiaries, and worth. So that would be our cost of licensure is to provide effective RN care, and then we're supposed to be able to do that at that cost. 5, governance means policies describe the board's methods and self-discipline. 6, executive limitations policies set boundaries of prudence and ethics. 7, policies are developed in steps from broadest to smallest. And when we talk about that, we talk about putting in policies so that the board is comfortable with any reasonable interpretation of that. And if we're feeling that there's just too much leeway, then we restrict that down a little bit with a little bit more narrow of a policy. But we really want to be able to allow our executive director to be able to run the organization within the set policies. 8, delegations are unambiguously assigned. So anything that we do create, or if we create a subcommittee, we want to make sure that expectations are clearly articulated and there's less leeway there. 9, delegatees may use any reasonable interpretation of policies. And 10 is regular monitoring against policy criteria is conducted. And we do have all our policies on a monitoring schedule, so council reviews them regularly. And depending on what type of policy it is, depends on who will be filling out the monitoring and how that'll be working out. And we just make sure that we're being in compliance. The couple of amazing, like again, I talked about the amazing network opportunities that present themselves on council. And I know that I can speak from personal experience and the privileges that I've had on being on council. We are able to meet people from all across the nursing profession, both provincially, nationally, but also internationally, to really meet nurse leaders, see developing trends, understand challenges, and talk about it. One of the things I found very interesting when we talk about moving the profession forward, and I've had the privilege of going to the National Council of State Boards of Nursing in the United States, in Chicago twice, once this last year. But one of the things that they showed with the updated slides was that in the United States, about half of the states still require an NP to be under a physician. So that was one of those things to help give the broader perspective to see how we are doing okay in this province and doing quite well. Other couple issues that we are currently sitting on council table to be discussed are this concept of multi-jurisdictional licensure. In the states, they have a compact agreement where they are able to get a license in one state and then get a multi-state license for any state in the compact, and then it makes it easier for people to go and move throughout the other states. And one of the reasons this is important is with telehealth and the age of the internet, and people just also want to be more portable. So that's something that's being discussed. Yeah, going back to networking opportunities. In our February meeting every year, we generally meet with ministry officials. Usually the chief nursing officer of the province comes with. We also link with the health authority. And also meet with the deans of the academic programs. Usually the deans of Sask Polytechnic, University of Saskatchewan, and University of Regina have the time and ability to join us at our February meeting, which is always a wonderful, excellent discussion. It's interesting how different nurse leaders come at different issues from different angles, and it just helps broaden the perspective and information that we get to take in. And we're always meeting with other networks and specialty groups. We always want to be linking with the public. And yeah, one of the things that has come up in recent times at the SRNA council table is having an external review. In nursing, we always talk about excellence in practice, and council has found it prudent to ensure that we are doing excellence in regulation as well. So we did recently have the Professional Standards Authority come in and review our complaints investigation and discipline process, and that report is also publicly available on our website for people to be able to view. We are linked with the CNA, the Canadian Nurses Association. I have the privilege of serving as the jurisdictional representative for the Canadian Nurses Association from Saskatchewan. As some of you are aware, the Canadian Nurses Association has recently, June 2018 biennium, made a motion and accepted and adopted the motion that CNA open up its membership to all categories of regulated nurses. And CNA is currently under a governance review to see how they will continue to govern given the changes, to make sure that we're effectively representative of the nursing profession in Canada. Yeah, if there are any questions, please ask any questions. The SRNA Council is amazing. It's absolutely very privileged to serve on SRNA Council. It has helped me develop professionally, personally, and sitting around the room with people from all over the province definitely widens my lens in my ability to be able to see the issues and to learn and grow and develop and adapt. There are advantages as well being on council. There is a professional development fund that people are able to access, $2,000 per term, and the requirement is that it has something to do with your role on the board, and that can be quite broadly interpreted, traditionally has, and various members take advantage of it. One of the things I did with my professional development fund is to understand more about policy governance principles and the whole policy governance, because sometimes the language can be challenging. So I was able to go to Calgary and learn more details about policy governance. Also had the ability to go to CLEAR, which is the Council of Licensure Enforcement and Regulation in Minneapolis earlier this year. Had the privilege of taking an executive leadership training course and also go to the annual education conference where they talked about regulation, and everything was focused on regulation. It's really interesting to see how, when we talk about 3 pillars of regulation, association, and union, how different groups of people see things differently, and it's just they operate differently. And as long as we can keep in common that we're here to serve the public and the patients and families and communities, it helps us all get online. But it's just a different little tweak each time you look at the lenses. And our council is focused on the regulatory primarily, although we do have the association lens as well. We do focus on the regulation of nurses as our primary function. And with that, I'll open it up to questions if anybody has any questions. I'm not sure who's all joined us.
We have no questions at this time, Warren.
Okay. Do you have any questions or something else you think I should be
No, I think you've given
discussing?
an overview. I think you've given a good overview. You've talked about your experience on council, and I think that's probably one of the best things that you can do, as you've had such a positive experience, may encourage others to actually take a chance and try and run for council. So I think that's some good information.
Totally. And the leadership opportunities just continue to build on each other. Like I said, the ability to be able to interact with nurse leaders from all different walks of life within nursing, but all different type of aspects of practicing, just really helps add to the depth and breadth. And it's amazing. There are so many people with so many experiences. The diversity of the nursing profession is vast and deep. And there are leaders doing so many great things in so many aspects to help us have a better society. We just are not aware of so many things that are transpiring. And having the privilege to serve on council really is a vector point to be able to have those perspectives come together and really see the whole issue. And then with the added responsibility of serving as president-elect and now president, the privilege to be able to sit at some national tables, it just adds even more to that. But not that if people have to think about running just as president, even though I encourage people to run for the president-elect position that is open this year. It's just an amazing opportunity. There are challenges with it and it is scrutinized, but one of my wise advisors once told me that if people aren't taking shots at you in the leadership chair, then maybe you're not doing as good a job as you should be, or not pushing things as hard as you should be, something like that. But so there are some criticisms that go with it, but any sort of governance position is going to have challenges with making hard decisions. And so I do want to highlight again the 10 basic responsibilities of a board member. And a board. Determine the mission and purpose of the organization. Select the chief executive director, which we have in place. We did go through a leadership or recruit Cindy Smith, our current executive director, who I'm hoping will be with us for a very long time. She is an excellent individual, so hopefully that one will be taken care of for a while. And then we want to be, for basic responsibilities, number 3, support and evaluate the chief executive and the executive director, really focusing on that team dynamic and trying to iron out any differences. Ensure effective planning, monitor and strengthen programs and services, ensure adequate financial resources, which comes to raising fees at times, which everybody loves being a part of that conversation. Protecting the assets and providing financial oversight, build a competent board, ensure legal and ethical integrity, enhance the organization's public standing. So those are the 10 basic responsibilities of the board. And really want to highlight that the board is focused on the vision. And sometimes it can be frustrating sitting in the board, seeing where you would like things to go, or I would like things to go, and all of the barriers in between to try and getting it to go that way, and the amount of collaboration and teamwork that's necessary to help move towards that shared vision. But really looking at things that are 5, 10, 20 years down the road and trying to position ourselves in a way to get there effectively. And if you're interested in the future of the profession, being on council is one of the best ways to be able to serve that need.
Okay, Warren, great overview. Hopefully we will get lots of people interested this year, and we'll have some good elections at the AGM for council members. We have no questions at this time. If you have nothing further, we'll wrap it up, and next week will be more information about council. Be nominating a colleague for council. If you've missed a webinar, you can view them on the SRNA's Vimeo or YouTube channels. And again, Warren, thank you so much for giving us an overview of council, and we'll see everyone next time.
I wish you all happiness and healthiness, and make sure to run. Thank you for joining.